Well, welcome guys to another video. If you're out the loop, a new expansion has been announced, Secrets of the Obscure. I've done 2 videos on it so far. First, we did a trailer analysis and looked at like the basic stuff, the release date, the title, the logo, that kind of stuff. Then we did some follow-up discussion with the trailer analysis. Today, I want to finish the press page that you can see here, which is basically all the overview details of the expansion. Now, if you already heard about this last week, this might be a little bit old news to you guys at this point, but I'm trying to go through everything. We'll probably look at the blog post soon as well. And so what this will do is go over more story details, more tangible story details about what exactly is happening with the Wizard's Tower and so on, which I have elected not to even talk about in these recent videos. And then we're going to be looking at gameplay features, what the expansion actually does in terms of expanding the game. And this is a kind of a big topic at the moment because this is the first X-Pack of this scope, this kind of quicker turnaround, and there are no elite specializations. I mean, that's the big one. I often hear, especially if you're a World vs. World or a PvP player, that one of the big reasons why a lot of people buy expansions, even for a lot of PvEers, is new elite specs, and they're gone now, so we have to see what ArenaNet are replacing them with, and well, that will be revealed as we go along. Also, I just want to say, the footage in the background that you can see here, this is made by Mr. Modius. There were a few comments about it when I spliced it into the footage yesterday. Mr. Modius was so quick on this. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I've had a version of this for End of Dragons and POF. What I'll probably do in the next coming days, if you guys really want this, is post it to my second channel, and I'll update the description with a link to that if you guys want. If you're catching this video right when it's gone up, it's probably not there yet. But yeah, and that might be kind of fun. Alright, so let's jump in and deal with some of the story. I guess we'll just take the page as it goes. There are some supplementary blog posts that they'll link to in a second as well, and I think we'll flick to one of those for a second. So, join the hunt for the truth. It's an interesting tagline for the X-Pack. I haven't talked about that yet, in as much as we don't really know what the secret is just yet. I mean, there is the mysterious Wizard's Tower. There are mysteries around, but the idea that, you know, there's some big truth that we need to get at, as far as the story is currently concerned, doesn't really mean anything. So, I wonder once we finish the expansion, how this will resonate, you know. And so, what do they say? Well, story is the first section. And it goes, as the Elder Dragon cycle ends, a new threat rises. So this will be a new chapter unfolding in Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure, the 4th expansion for the award-winning MMO Guild Wars 2. Soar through the skies to combat the strange and otherworldly forces emerging through rifts to devastate Tyria. So that one sentence pretty much sums it up. We're going to hear that the new maps are like floating sky maps. We're going to hear that one of the main features has a big impact on the Skyscale. Which we'll get to in a second, which we'll probably use to traverse these maps. Actually, I imagine this X-Pack will feel a lot like if you go to Heart of the Mists and get on your Skyscale or your Griffin and you fly around all the different islands out there. You know, the reworked Heart of the Mist from a few years ago. And then they do mention these rifts here as well, which are one of the big gameplay features. The adventure continues through 3 major story and content releases to follow, a self-contained story. And by the way they mention the 3 releases here is good, I think, because the whole idea of this new format is we're buying an expansion, but you're just not getting it all at once. The later releases are a big part of what you're buying, you know, because Living World is free now, blah, blah, blah. And we're not calling it Living World. So, I kind of like that they do say that straight away. This expansion is 3 releases. It's just coming out staggered instead of all at once. A self-contained story with its own resolution will play out at launch. Later releases will seamlessly pick up where the launch arc concluded and tell the rest of the expansion story. Additional features and updates across the game are planned for a release every quarter. So here I do want to talk about this as well very briefly. Just a slight concern from me. And do you guys feel the same about this? Because I don't know whether I'm being overly cynical here. But this idea that a self-contained story with its own resolution is at launch, and then the later releases pick up where it's concluded and tell the rest. It's like we're going to be, you know, there's this idea that the mini X-Packs are going to be their one self-contained story. And what does that mean? That means they're going to get less screen time to do the whole plot, okay? And maybe that works if they pick smaller scale mysteries and ideas like the Wizard's Tower, and the whole story is built for that kind of runtime from the off, right? Maybe that works. When we looked at the Elder Dragon saga, I often felt, in fact always felt, oh, this Living World season didn't fully explore what it could have. This expansion, especially with the expansions, didn't fully explore what it could have. There was actually only one time in Guild Wars 2's history where I felt like the pacing of the story was really good and they managed to adequately explore all of their subject material, and that was with Season 2. Season 2, compared to the rest of the game, is very, very slow and very sort of winding, right? Everything else is going at breakneck pace. Everything else feels like it's trying to be an action movie and go, 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 and barely skims over all the more interesting lore and real analysis of the situation that's going on. So I loved Season 2. All the rest, it felt like they were rushed. Now, we're going to stories now that really are only going to cover that one expansion, as far as we know. I feel like immediately that then means there could be a rush already. But beyond that, now we hear that they're kind of splitting that story into two. You know, you've got the post updates, and then you've got the release story as well. Given how poorly received the most recent two updates to the game were, the ones around the Gala Delve, I'm really worried about this, guys. I kind of think, oh god, what if these later releases sort of suck? So the only significantly well-told story we get is a very minor bit on release. I mean, am I being too cynical? I kind of like the idea that all of it, all across the whole expansion era, tells one story. You know, that gives them good runtime to tell one idea, one story. But I see why they haven't done that. The risk with that proposition is people are going to be playing Secrets of the Obscure when it comes out in a couple of months, and then it's just going to suddenly end, and there's not going to be a decent conclusion there. There's not going to be a big fight against a bad guy necessarily. It would just sort of hang on a very real cliffhanger, and what that would feel like is that the expansion is half finished. People would immediately think, oh, I've paid X money for this expansion, and it feels like they haven't completed it. I got half a story, I got half an experience. So they kind of have to manufacture it this way. They're kind of forced to do it with its own story arc and then secondary ones. But now we're splitting in two. So I don't know. I feel like they're between a rock and a hard place on this. We'll just see how it goes. But that's really what made me raise my eyebrows, because I was curious how ArenaNet were going to be dealing with this. Moving on. I've probably lingered on that too long. Here we got Release 1, Release 2, Release 3. And yes, I did know, you know, when I very first looked at this press page, I saw these symbols here. Now, if you watched my trailer analysis, I was talking about the glyphs that are above the door and how they felt similar to the Ascension runes. Actually, initially, I was looking at these and thinking these looked like the Ascension runes. It was only later when I went back to the trailer in more detail, I realized, oh, these symbols are appearing elsewhere as well. But yes, some of you guys in the comments noticed these as well. There's more of these glyphs. I wonder, by the time we're done with the expansion, whether we'll look at these and we'll know, oh, this corresponds with this destination or this realm or this thing, right? These secrets that will be revealed. And if we do go with that theory from the trailer video, that maybe each symbol is associated with a realm or a destination, well, what would it then mean to have it paired with Release 1 and then paired with Release 2 and paired? Wouldn't that kind of suggest each release has a destination associated with it? Now, I'm not saying a full-fledged, massive, conventional map like, you know, we would have had from previous Living World. I think that's absolutely not a thing. But maybe small places that we can visit when we go through these rifts or something. And, you know, they're not too big. They're the size of like a PvP map or something. But nonetheless, if they feel rich and interesting and diverse, I would still be really happy with that. Maybe that's a thing, or I'm just looking way too deep and this is just fun little art. Now, you can see these are actually hyperlinks, but when you click them at the moment, they don't do anything. They don't take you anywhere, which is something I guess we'll see way down the line. I've actually always been impressed with Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet. When you go back to like release pages like this and old expansion release pages, they do keep updating these. You know, most of the community at the forefront of speculation discussion, as we are here, you know, we don't end up looking back because we get that information elsewhere or we just play through it. But you go back and someone has got the job of going back and updating these as they come out. So next, oh, by the way, the art as well in the background. I guess these are the new enemy faction, the Cryptis, who we're going to hear about in a second. I love this winged one back here. They look quite demonic. Before I heard of the Cryptis, look at, you see this guy's like made of flesh and he's like stitched together. Do you know what I actually thought of this? Because this is the first time we've seen these guys when they're not all like black and grayed out, as we saw in that concept art before. They actually remind me of Flesh Reavers, don't you guys think? Flesh Reavers are quite rare enemies. You don't see them much in Guild Wars 2. What I've always loved about Flesh Reavers is they were kind of introduced to Guild Wars 1 in Eye of the North. And they even had like a description in the Eye of the North manual about Flesh Reavers, which is significant to me because Eye of the North was all about setting up Guild Wars 2 stuff. And it was like, oh, here are these weird creatures that, you know, they're made from stitching together flesh of other creatures. And there was always kind of that question of, oh, why are these being introduced? I guess ArenaNet have ideas for them for Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 came out, and not only do they not really factor much as enemies around the world, there's basically no story expansion on them ever. At all. So, and then we see this, and this looks like a Flesh Reaver. Now, I know we said in the previous video, we were talking about Menzies, we were talking about the Shadow Army, we were talking about dark kind of creatures. And we've been talking about, like, void variations and so on. And these creatures in the background, these look like void variations, don't they, really? But I'm beginning to think all of the Cryptis, actually, they look more like this. And I've got another idea, guys. I think the Cryptis might be varieties of Flesh Reavers. And you might say, well, what's the significance there? It's just a fun nod back to Eye of the North, I suppose. An explanation about other people maybe manufacturing Flesh Reavers. And when I start thinking about the manufacturing of Flesh Reavers, well, if you watched my original Guild Wars 2 Mysteries Wizard's Tower video, apparently a lot of you guys went back to that while I was away, so that's very cool. In that, you know, there were all of these ideas about, like, super advanced minion-mancy, and, you know, where going really far with minion-mancy might take you with the Cult of Verata. Well, Flesh Reaving is an interesting concept, isn't it? I sort of... Maybe this is just me liking edgy stuff too much, but I'm kind of like the idea that maybe this is somehow associated with the Wizard's Tower, or there is some connection there. It's likely these are just demons from the mists that now see Tyria as vulnerable because there's no other dragons or something, and they want to come in. But, yeah, I've got the Flesh Reaver thing in mind. We'll see. But I like the look of all of them, regardless. Next, let's talk about where we're going in the expansion. So we see this giant building down here. At first glance, you might think, oh, that's the Wizard's Tower. And I think that is fair, by the way. I know it looks totally different. It's got trees and stuff all around it. It's much grander. It's much bigger scale. The thing is, as amazing as the Wizard's Tower looks, floating back there in the sky behind Garenhof, it's one of those interesting props where if you were actually to get really close to it or go inside it, you'd notice it's a lot smaller than... You know, it's deceptive because it's positioned out of bounds. You can't really realize how small or limited the actual model is. And this is something I'm very familiar with because of, you know, years ago when we would use, like, Tyria 3D to look at maps and do a bit of data mining and stuff. It is kind of a simple prop, you know. It's definitely something for the background. So if we are going to have an expansion where we actually go there finally, for me, 100% that would require a rebuilding of it, making it bigger, giving it more rooms, more places, and so on. So when I first saw this image, I was totally willing to accept that's just the new... That will be what the Wizard's Tower's like in the expansion. But actually not so, I think. This is another location, which I'm now scanning this paragraph here. It doesn't even say. We'll get to in a second. I want to note as well, though, these orbs floating. Again, we have 6 of them. And you guys counted 6 before, this whole thing about 6 destinations and all that stuff. I don't know. Seeing them now just randomly floating around here is odd. It suggests to me that there's actually loads and they just feature all over the place. Unless it's that this specific promotional art has pulled them out from inside and drawn them here to just remind us of them. I don't know. Anyway, so an archipelago... I hate this word. I've always pronounced this wrong. I always swap the L and the G, I believe it is. The G and the L. An archipelago in the sky. An archipelago in the sky. One of those. Prepare to enter a realm of mystery and magic, hidden above the clouds, that has safeguarded the peace of Tyria and its people for centuries. So, yeah, and this is one of those things where it's like these people have been around for ages and ages and ages, and we never really had a great clue about them. Again, I wish that there had been something cryptic written somewhere in the game that the devs could say, actually, this was talking about them, by the way. The Zephyrite storyline stuff, because they are also an airborne society, would have been a really, really great place to have that. And if ArenaNet have managed to find some clue or some little thing that they can say, here's a connecting dot, even if they've done it, you know, after the fact, I will be so happy. But yeah, apparently they've safeguarded peace. That's interesting, because they never helped us at all with the Elder Dragon threat, and I want a good, credible reason for that. At the initial release, soar through 2 aerial maps and explore the nooks and crannies of the Wizard's Tower outpost. A new explorable zone will also open up for discovery as the story continues and updates to come. So this new explorable zone What I'm wondering, if this is a, you know, God Realm thing, if the whole Menzies idea is a thing or whatever, is this new zone going to be in the mists? And I'm okay with that. I don't want too much mist exploration. I want to stay on Tyria. I think expanding Tyria as a map, as an actual place, is really important. But one of the 3 maps maybe being there would possibly be a good idea. Now, the idea that they're both aerial maps is a little disappointing to me, I have to say. It's a little disappointing because when I think of an expansion for this franchise, okay, and I'm going way back to Guild Wars 1 here, what I want is to look at the world map, and this is a ludicrously superficial thing I'm about to say, but it does matter to me. I want to look at the world map, that massive beauty, and it got so much bigger, right, when we expanded to Cantha recently. I want to look at that art, and I want to see a random island or coastline or, you know, place that looks somehow interesting, like, say, the Isles of Janthea we were discussing in a previous video. And I want to be able to go there. I want it to expand. I want an adventure in a new place. And now I hear we get 2 aerial maps, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that in terms of we'll get a new adventure. But I now sort of just imagine it's going to be a bit like Dragonfall, you know? These aerial maps could be anywhere. They don't necessarily have any relation to the world map art or the geography below. And if the geography below doesn't factor into them, they could just be whatever, you know, just dumped in. And that somehow steals the wind out of my sails a bit. I feel like I've been robbed a bit on that. So we'll see what they do. Now, for actual candidates of locations, again, it could be anywhere. There's nothing for us to be latched onto. They could be anywhere. Just dumped out of the sea, there you have it. And maybe there'd be some novelty with that. Put them, you know, somewhere near the Battle Isles or something. But yeah, you know, we won't get the Battle Isles. We won't get, you know, some missing chunk of the map at the Tarnished Coast or whatever. However, one candidate that I think is very, very, very good, talking about data mining, and I'll put it on screen here for you guys right now, this area of Kryta, right next to Lion's Arch, okay? This is the Delesio Seaboard. If you played Guild Wars 1, there was a mission you could participate in here. This seems like a very good place for one of the maps to be. Now, speaking of data mining, way back, you can see in the earlier versions of the client, there was a plan from ArenaNet at some point to have an explorable map here. And you could see it extended from this coast south down past Claw Island and like some of these other islands to the south. So it was a pretty substantial sized map. I'm guessing that when they decided they couldn't do the Tengu and stuff, that probably ended up going the way of the Dodo. But I wouldn't be surprised if this chunk now comes in, because it's right there next to the Wizard's Tower. And actually, if you guys go to Garenhof, I will have a video tour of Garenhof with the new story coming up, so you'll see it there as well if you don't want to do it yourself. But if you go to Garenhof right now, you'll see there's some kind of a gate leading over there. Now, on the data mined work in progress map, there was almost no detail. There was like the Melandru statue from the mission as like a landmark, but that was about it. It was very, 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 you know, placeholder stuff. Now, obviously, we're a decade beyond, and the whole expansion is about islands in the sky. So yeah, I think maybe we'll fill in this little bit of Kryta. And a bit like how Lake Doric finally got added, though it was cut down, it didn't have Lake Regent and all that other stuff. I think maybe we'll get that place. That'll be one of the aerial maps. As for the other aerial map, I mean, who the hell knows? Genuinely, who knows? And where could it be that would be exciting? We're going to hear that there's Skyscale stuff going on with this. So maybe that... No, I'm not going to say it's Dragonfall. I don't think it's got anything to do with Dragonfall or where Kralkatoric fell out or anything like that. I think they'll just pick a random spot. I'll tell you what, I'll open that to the comments. Where do you guys think this second map is? In fact, both of them, because I might be wrong on my first bit of speculation. And then I'm going to guess maybe the third one might be the Mist, something like that. And I think that that's okay. After this expansion, though, I do have to say, I really want the next mini expansion to take us to a place. I think I would be a lot more excited and thrilled if I was sitting here right now saying to you guys, it's the Isles of Janthea. You know, if this paragraph was saying, go to the Isles of Janthea, you know, and we'll have multiple maps there, that would be amazing. Or whatever other location. The Battle Isles Return is the other example I've just given. But, yeah, just in the sky, it is what it is. So here we get these little screenshots, easily missed. It says, further adventures, a new explorable zone will open up in the first major subsequent release and fill with new content over time. So this will be dry top style, Gyala Delve style, Drizzlewood style, and I think that works. The Gyala Delve was pretty brutal, you know, they just expanded it by adding a tunnel. That doesn't exactly excite me, but just because the Gyala Delve sort of dropped the bag a little bit. It doesn't mean that every release will. We've seen the slow expansion work well many times before. So here, this is the other location, Amitas, and I'm basically pronouncing the N silent there. I don't know what you guys think, but Amitas, hidden just below the planet's atmosphere. Now this is very instructive here. Just below the planet's atmosphere. So my guess here is we're sort of on the edge of the realm. Home to the Wizard's Court and the Astral Ward, a society unknown to those who live in Tyria. And the fact it's so high up maybe explains how they've kept themselves hidden, how Zodge has been hidden all this time. Here, the Wizard's Bastions are beginning to falter under the corrupting influence of the Cryptis, an other-worldly threat from the mists. They describe the Cryptis here almost not just as the enemies, but as a phenomenon, right? It's the Cryptis phenomenon. And there may be more to the Cryptis than just, you know, the little monsters that come out at us. So that's Amitas, and this is clearly like a big city map here, as you see. Is it the same as this location here in the background, which still looks kind of spherical and like it might be the Wizard's Tower? I mean, you don't see the archways. Actually, guys, I'm going to go back here. I think maybe this is literally the Wizard's Tower. Because we're gonna hear that the Wizard... In fact, we did already hear it. The Wizard's Tower is an outpost you can explore. I think this is the outpost variation of the Wizard's Tower. And maybe they'll explain the redesign as, like, I don't know, some kind of shenanigans. Or maybe they don't have to. By the way, I love the phrase outpost here as a Guild Wars 1 nerd. You know, Outposts was the original kind of name for a little town, a place with a waypoint, essentially, for Guild Wars 2 players, where you're safe from enemies and you can port around to. They actually did bring the phrase outpost back already with Guild Wars 2, with Heart of Thorns. Those little hubs where, like, some of the meta event chains kick off from. Those are called outposts, technically. So I don't think we're using this word here in, like, a gameplay feature kind of sense. I think we're just using this word as, you know, it's an outpost. But this will be basically the new hub. You know, this is the Sun's Refuge. This is the Eye of the North. This is Arborstone. I guess we could go on a massive discussion about hubs and how useful we think that they are at this point, and, you know, whether it will feel like a really good thing throughout the course of this expansion. But you guys all know what your opinions on that probably is. I'm happy to get the Wizard's Tower as a place for more than just a bit of combat. If you guys remember, for years now, I've said, actually, before the announcement of this new scheme, this new expansion scheme, with the smaller ones that are regular, I always thought that the Wizard's Tower was perfect for a raid release, you know, like a Bastion of the Penitent style raid release. Now, you know, we're doing even better than that. We're getting a whole goddamn expansion about it, which is really cool. It's funny to be living in this point in the future. It feels like just yesterday the devs were saying, oh, we have a lot of teams, we don't know who will get it in the end, and, you know, now there's an expansion coming out about it. So yeah, Amitas is this place. The Wizard's Tower, and I mean, look, they've paired the art here with the Wizard's Tower, so everything I said a minute ago basically counts. And look, we got these orbs here again. And are these orbs in the sky as well, or is that just muck on my screen? No, they're orbs in the sky. But yeah, so find the truth behind the ancient mysteries as you unlock the secrets of the Wizard's Tower, a castle that floated peacefully above the Crichton landscape since before the time of the original Guild Wars, until it abruptly disappeared one day. Something you can sort of half experience in-game right now. And then over here, it's got further adventures. A new zone will open up in the first major subsequent release and fill with content over time. So, oh yeah, and then we get this screenshot here as well, which is very easy to miss. This is the Skywatch Archipelago. Discover a chain of islands high above Tyria, where distorted, alternate universe reflections of the world below have taken on lives of their own. Okay, there's a lot to get to here. If you watched my previous video, you will know that if you zoom in on this very low resolution image, that is floating Garenhof back there. So we do know that, and you can even see like the stormy skies below it. So we do know that there are going to be two Garenhofs. There's the real Garenhof, and then there is a distorted, alternate universe reflection of Garenhof, but in the skies above Tyria somewhere. I mean, that makes my guess that one of these maps is going to be in a bit weird, you know. Maybe it's going to be set really far away, because that would mean there's a Garenhof above a Garenhof, almost, you know, just slightly to the east or slightly to the west or whatever. So, I don't know. But I want to talk about this idea here of just the theme of the expansion. The concept of alternate universe reflections and sort of weird Elseworld versions of places we've seen, that has a lot of novelty to me. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. The idea of setting all of those as little islands that we can fly around to on our Skyscale also has a lot of novelty. So just in terms of just the broad idea, I think this is really cool. I'm going to be excited about this. It's sort of like, you know, Fractals of the Mists? Fractals are really captivating and exciting when you first play through them, I think, and you see all the different play and wonder what everything's to do with. But again, if you actually... Fractals on a fundamental level, it's all the same map, right? That you just sort of teleport to different areas. If in theory there was no like out-of-bounds teleportation, you could skyscale in there. You could fly to all the different Fractals, and you would experience them as little islands. And I think that's a really fun sort of feeling. Now, we know that Guild Wars 2 maps can't be that big, and this screenshot certainly makes all the islands feel really close together. So I don't know how vast, how big the scale is going to feel here. But I kind of get to live that fantasy of actually flying around to different fractals here. It's going to be kind of cool. It's like fractals in the sky or something. So I like all of that, just in general. The thing that I kind of don't like is something I glossed over in that previous video. It sort of disappoints me we're getting alternate universe reflections, because it's not like new exploration, you know? It's not like going to the desert. It's not like going to the jungle. It's a bit like how, you know, End of Dragons, you could feel had a tighter budget than the development of the other expansions. You could feel it. And one of the ways in which that came through was like with the enemy factions. The Void, they were just things we had already fought. They just put like a new shader over the top, so they looked all black or grimy or whatever. There were some really amazing and astounding new places for us to go, but often in End of Dragons, it felt like, this could have had a bit more. They could have gone a bit further with this. Now, immediately following End of Dragons, where already people were grumbling a bit about that, we're going to get an expansion that is just lots of asset reuse in terms of the environments. We're as great as the novelty is, we are ultimately just reusing Garanov here. You know, just slightly, you know, reconfigured. We are going to be, in some of these screenshots, you'll see that there's an area that looks a lot like Cantha, and there's an area that looks, you know, like these look like Cryer, I guess we can see. There are other examples we'll see as we go through the page. And it feels like, well, we already did that. And yes, I'm on a floating island in the sky now, and there's some novelty there. And maybe the NPCs have lots of fun, weird things to say. But is that really what I want from an expansion? No, I want to go to a new place, and I want a new adventure. And that, I don't want to labour the point too much, but that's a little bit sad to me. So we'll see. And hopefully that it's just because this is the first mini X-Pack and they're getting the ball rolling, and the later ones, they can do more magnificent things. The unspoken thing that's going on here as well is obviously the budget is being pulled in for a lot of this stuff because they're making some other game. They're doing something else. And, I mean, what, will we be happy to accept this when that thing gets announced? You know, maybe 2 mini X-Packs down the line. We'll see. So there you go. That's the Skywatch. And that's basically, I swear there was something else I was going to say here. But there you go, that's a little bit more about where we'll be going and what we'll be doing. Right, let's move on. More story here. This is the Astral Ward, but we're actually starting to kind of talk about the mastery here now. We get the mysterious eye here. You know, the enemy, I suppose. The manifestation of the Cryptis. The rifts. You know, this actually, I think, is a fully open rift. It says, Tyria's hidden protectors join the Astral Ward in fighting off the Cryptis forces as they crawl into Tyria. I love this description of them crawling. Through rifts in reality, laying siege to Amatas above. As you progress through the ranks, you'll take on increasingly deadly prey in new and existing maps, and unlock new rewards for your efforts along the way. Existing maps as well. And I think this is fine. I think all the expansions should have done much more of this. And just because we're in a mini X-Pack now, it doesn't mean anything. I think leveraging and taking us back to earlier core game maps is good. I think as long as there's new story and things to do, I have absolutely no problem with that. I know that some people are very flinchy about that, and they talk about, you know, reuse. As I just whine kind of about reuse here in terms of the new area, in terms of assets. But I don't mind backtracking. I really don't. And I think putting rifts, just like that current event story, if you remember, where we had the reality rifts opening up, is good. I actually think that current events thing, by the way, is sort of a bit unfortunate now. It's sad for us to be going into this story where it's like, oh, rifts are opening all over Tyria, and it's somewhat a little bit undermined by the fact there was a very minor patch years ago where we already kind of experienced that, you know. It was one of the best current events patches, don't get me wrong, but it sort of has contaminated it a little bit. So as we scroll down, we can see this wizard. God, I love the whole wizard's vibe, by the way. Swirling this relic, okay. Now, if we scroll all the way back up to the top, we have the key art of the expansion. Now, somebody in the comments, and I responded to it in my Q&A, said, oh, look, this wizard is using the relic. This is just a stand-in for the player. This is a stand-in for the commander. I don't know, though, guys. This is clearly a wizard of this society using the relic. But I think, I still think that's a new character. This is definitely a stand-in for the commander. It's got this big amazing hat here. Actually, it looks a little bit like an eye in a triangle on the hat, which is going to immediately make people think the Eye of Janthir. Which, there's maybe, if you believe the Demos connection, there's maybe some reason to believe the Eye of Janthir will do something in this expansion. Again, though, I feel like with the Bastion of the Penitent, they were really trying to write the Eye of Janthir out, and like they didn't want to have to explain it anymore. We'll see. But yeah, you got this amazing swirling animation, so this will be something new that we're doing. And I'm actually quite excited about this animation, because, can I just say, as we go into this, I'm not very excited about Guild Wars 2 Masteries, PvE Masteries. You know, when you look at like the Icebrood Saga ones, where you just get a bunch of stuff that improves your combat, we've seen a ton of versions of them. There's not much new to get out of them, I feel like. But there's also not usually like an object or something really tangible for us to interact with like this. So this might, I'm actually hopeful for this Mastery, is what I'm trying to say. Because it feels like it's gone a little bit further than, say, just giving you a bunch of buffs, you know. So, seek and close... Wait, did I skip? No, I didn't skip that. Seek and close the rifts. During your adventure, you'll master the Heart of the Obscure, a mystical artifact, and unlock additional capabilities as you train with it. You'll need to use its strange powers to track and destroy rifts, facing new dangers as you progress. So, I think there's going to be lots of rifts appearing across Tyria, but you can't figure out where they are without training the Mastery. Now, here it says learn more about Rift Hunt. If we click this, we go to the blog post, which I'll be covering. If you scroll down... they have this little passage here, and I think this is what they really want us to read. They're saying 2 additional mastery lines are going to be in the expansion. So we get 2 lines. Both are closely tied to the story. As we fight off the ravages of the Cryptis, we'll make allies of the Wizard's Court and the Astral Ward, ancient protectors of Tyria who have been brought out of their seclusion by the Cryptis threat. Through your new allies, you'll gain access to a powerful artifact called the Heart of the Obscure. With Cryptis forces pouring into Tyria through portals in the mist, it falls to you and the Astral Ward to track down and close the portals and deal with any Cryptis that have managed to pass through them. The Heart of the Obscure and the Astral Ward masteries will aid you as you hunt and close rifts throughout Tyria. Together, the 2 mastery lines will allow you to explore the world more freely and take on greater threats and earn richer rewards. So, and all this stuff will be coming at launch, including another line. And here, yes, there you're hearing actually about 2 distinct like sects or societies within all this stuff going on here. And they say, oh, and then we got the Wizard's Vault. So, just to stop here, the one thing I want to linger on is actually a bit of story speculation, and it's this, the Heart of the Obscure. Now, I don't know how closely you guys played End of Dragons. If you watched my, like, playthrough of it and got to the late game stuff where I went and did all the side quests and so on, and we did, like, as many bonus achievements as I possibly could, basically, you might remember there was something in End of Dragons, sort of newly introduced to the lore, called the Heart of Grenth. And it was this mysterious relic, and we don't really know what was going on with it, or exactly its association with Grenth, or what was happening. But that was kind of curious to me, because it's like, oh, they've added this new thing. I wonder where they're going with this. And now in this expansion, we've got the Heart of the Obscure. I wonder whether the Heart of Grenth was our tease, was a little thing from End of Dragons, sort of suggesting, I wonder whether they're connected, and it was sort of suggesting where the story might go now. Of course, we don't know anything about this thing, or any of its broader story connections to the Cryptis, or why the rifts are here, or anything. I mean, we're very, very blind here. And I'm actually kind of excited about that. There's just going to be a whole load of new things to learn about, and a story to play, you know, without, you know, this is one of those things where we were talking a lot about how, oh, it's constantly about Guild Wars 1, it's constantly about Guild Wars 1. Well, not really. All this stuff could be anything, and aside from very, very tiny little hints and nods here or there, I don't think that, you know, anyone who played Guild Wars 1 has a leg up on a Guild Wars 2 player here. This is new story. And then we have the Wizard's Vault. Now, this I'm extremely excited about. I might do a dedicated video on this. I don't know. This one's a bit iffy. I mean, I could speculate as to how it could work. That might be a video. But discover the Wizard's Vault. The Wizard's Vault awards a special currency for completing daily, weekly, and regular achievements across the game. That currency can then be spent on all manner of rewards, which will be updated over time, although older items will remain. Yeah, maybe I'll do another video, because I think the blog posts go into this a little bit more. But essentially, guys, it looks like this achievement is coming with a new daily system, and I'm very excited about that. Why am I excited about that? I really don't like the current daily system. I think it's too bloated. There's 1,000 categories. Truly new players really, really would like that 2 gold, but I don't think they're pointed to it very well. There's so much to do. I don't like how, if you're a PvX player, you'll just accidentally finish your dailies for all 3 game modes. I think they could be more rewarding. I think that the currencies currently associated with it, like resonating shards and slivers, are terrible and bloated. And I know it's one of those things where I think ArenaNet put a lot of work into the last rework of the daily system a few years ago, but it wasn't good enough. And it didn't include stuff like, you know, transparent, obvious signs as to what the weekly things are. You know, you've heard me talking about FF14 a few times recently, especially since I did that review, Guild Wars 2 versus FF14. One of the things that really struck me about that MMO was how elegant their daily system is with their roulettes and stuff. You know, you go in-game, it's very clear that there's a really good currency that you almost definitely want. It's easy to queue in, and they kind of have their daily tied with their matchmaker, which I don't think Guild Wars can do because a matchmaker is unfeasible for X, Y, and Z reasons. But nonetheless, they have a really good setup where when you go in game, you understand this is what I want to do daily, this is what's available, this is what I want to do weekly, this is what's available. Daily systems are really good for keeping content evergreen. FF is so good for having evergreen content. Guild Wars is full of a bunch of stuff that should be evergreen. When you look at like activities like South Sun Survival, all that kind of stuff, that a really robust daily system could and should point to and doesn't. And it really devastates me. So I would love to see a rework to all of that. Equally, I really don't like login rewards. And I don't like login rewards for two reasons. One is kind of a superficial reason in that I just think it looks a bit tacky. It's like, you know, bribing people to keep the game installed. It just looks really desperate and just, I don't think it's a good look for what should be a successful game. Which is kind of, you know, whatever. Maybe I'm being stupid about that. Maybe I need to get with the times. A lot of games offer daily, you know, login reward incentives and stuff. So maybe I'm just an out-of-touch boomer on this. However, the other reason I really don't like it is because of this kind of gross thing that's been going on with Guild Wars for years. This really scummy thing where certain people will buy lots and lots of accounts to log in, which is clearly unintended behavior, and get like massively bloated rewards, lots of money over time for basically engaging in tedium and a bit of real world spending that more casual people won't do, okay? But ArenaNet let it slide because at the end of the day, it's putting money in their pockets because it's people buying accounts. You know, that kind of, there's like a symbiotic, like gross, like little relationship going on there. And it's all very underhanded and people don't really talk about it. I think people should talk about it. And I think that the login rewards are the direct cause of that, obviously. So if this means login rewards are going away and dailies are being reworked to, you know, have all of those login reward features with it, I think that's really good. And I think a strong daily system is every bit as good as a strong login reward system. It's just, you know, you're not just asking people to have it installed and click it for a second, but to actually play the game. And hopefully as well, as Final Fantasy does, encourage people to engage in cooperative stuff as well. I think that co-op stuff is really important. It helps communities thrive and build. It creates reason for guilds and so on. So, I'm really excited about this. I think it'll be very good. I want to be clear, this could be one of the downfalls of this expansion, though. Because MMO players are ludicrously easy to, like, aggravate and, you know, tick off if rewards get messed with. If ArenaNet make these rewards feel like a step back, even a slight step back, I think you're going to see rage posts and it's going to be controversy. So this is, I quite respect ArenaNet for going for this because there's risk with this. You know, one of the reasons I think that a shoddy login reward system and even like when you look at the login reward system, by the way, half the rewards there aren't even relevant sometimes now if you're a long-term player, like transmutation shards, if you've got too many legendaries, stuff like that. But I think one of the reasons why we've had a shoddy login reward system and a shoddy daily system for so long is because you're spending money to redevelop a system, and there's a lot of, not only are you spending money to do that and you might just come out even, but there's risk there, there's huge risk. And ArenaNet have taken that risk on with this X-Pack, and I'm really happy to see it. And hopefully they've got something good. I mean, this might be rubbish. They might not have done much anywhere with the dailies or the login rewards. And there might be an interview or something with more info. I'm really reading the comments very closely on these guys because in a lot of places you're going to know more than me. But yeah, so excited about that one. All right, let's move on. We're getting into some topics now for this section here, Build, Craft, and Battle, that I'm going to do dedicated videos on each one. So don't worry, I'm not going to be rambling for too much longer here. Build, Craft, and Battle. Experience newfound flexibility in combat style with several potent system updates at launch and throughout the year to follow. Put your build to the test in thrilling new encounters. So here you can see there's this Mesmer, this player character. But they're a virtuoso holding an axe. I really think ArenaNet mixed a trick here. Couldn't they have had an axe and a shield? So therefore it's representing all three specs at once. But yes, unless that is a shield, it's a sword-themed shield. I don't think so, though. So yes, there are some new updates. Here we get Zodra as well. I don't know why these are all so low frame rate, by the way. And I don't know what she's wielding. I don't remember having a scepter like that. So just kind of a good little thing to throw in here when we're dealing with like mechanics and geeky intelligence stuff or whatever. So what have we got here? Well, if we click left, it says build craft. And seriously, each of these is going to get a video. Elite spec weapon access. So here's our replacement for elite specs. Gain additional flexibility and playstyle diversity by equipping weapons that were previously exclusive to elite specs. So just as I mentioned here, and just as we can see with this Mesmer, this is a virtuoso, because of the blades on top, wielding the Mirage's axe, okay? So there's lots of cross combos, lots to talk about and think about there. You guys can give me your thoughts on it if you like below. I've got many of my own, and I'll talk about some of the things that are exciting to me. Boots is away at the moment, by the way. I was away, and then Boots was away. So when he gets back, I might do like a co-op commentary with him, and we'll talk about, you know, everything each of us is excited for that. Then there's relics and runes, and there's a little bit of controversy with this one already, but the actual fundamentals of the system are awesome, and I've proposed many times over the years, as some people in the Spud Discord noted. And again, this will get its own video. Relics are a new type of equipable item, basically. Relics augment your build with special additional effects, complemented and streamlined with a revamped rune system. I really love this one. I'll hold my tongue for now. New weapon access as well. So, what you'll notice they've done here by crossing all the elite specs weapons all over is now they've just opened the idea that, well, they can just add new weapons now. So this is like fundamental housekeeping, if you will. This is the specialization patch pre-HOT, and this is where we start getting expansion. So new weapons. All 9 professions will gain access to another weapon from the Guild Wars 2 Armory. These weapons will give new skills and fighting styles to go along with other combat system changes. So, we don't get a whole elite spec, but we do get a new weapon, which ArenaNet feel pretty confident is like the big thing that makes you feel different. They have a list of what those weapons are. I will do a dedicated video on that. Now, I will say, just the header, they didn't do anything really dramatic here. They didn't like take Scepter and put in the offhand. They didn't add any new categories like scythes and whips and stuff, as we've said so many times before. But this is a start. I think, I don't know how long term this can be, though. They will start having to do more dramatic stuff, because am I right or am I wrong? Warrior, just as a little spoiler for that other video, Warrior's getting staff, okay? Which is great. I think that's a really, really cool one. But isn't that it now for Warrior? Doesn't Warrior, once it has staff... Oh, no, I guess it doesn't have Scepter or Focus. I guess they'll just get Spellcaster ones. Oh, we got a few expansions in it then. But eventually, you know, we're going to run out, especially if these expansions are rapid fire, which is kind of part of the point, right? And then over here, there's really nothing to say. There won't be videos on these. Strike missions, we already knew this from the previous announcements. There'll be strike missions. There's 2 new bosses. There'll be parts of the story. They'll do this End of Dragon style, and then later they'll get the challenge modes. This is exactly how End of Dragons did it, and this was a big win as far as I'm concerned for End of Dragons. I think they did very well. They were a little slow. You know, it's been a bit slow since End of Dragons came out, let's be real. We had the Odd Lions Court, that's about it. But these were really cool for End of Dragons, and they've continued the format. I'm very happy with that. And then Fractal. There will be a Fractal as well. There is, of course, another new Fractal, the End of Dragons Fractal, that came out last week. I haven't played it yet. There will be a video on that. But yeah, as to what the new Secrets of the Obscure one's going to be, who knows? But it will come at some point. You'll notice a lot of this, by the way, is planned content. Even this, right? The Elite Specialization Weapon Access, I think that is planned. Oh, no. I think the new weapons are planned. The new weapons are not a release. You won't get Warrior Staff in 2 months, for example. You will get this. And by the way, for a long time, I thought that this Elite Specialization Weapon Access thing was going to be like one of the masteries, because they call it Weapon Mastery when they talk about it in their blog posts. But actually, no, I think it's not a mastery. They already said what the other masteries are, and that's not one of them. I think anyway. All right, so explore the skies. Now, this is the last big thing that we got to talk about. This is the last section. Well, kind of. There's something to say about the rewards. This is stuff to do with the Skyscale. They say master the skies, and obviously we see a Skyscale here flying through the new area, the Skywatch. Prepare to soar to new heights with the Skyscale Mount Mastery. The expansion story includes a new streamlined way to acquire the mount, along with masteries. Complete the entire track to unlock a demonic Skyscale mount. And I think they got a preview of that somewhere. In-game mount skin, by the way, I think it's really easy to gloss over and not think about that. But anytime I see an in-game mount skin, I'm very happy. And by the way, This Wizards Vault stuff, they've kind of said, like, there's going to be lots of gem store associated things with that. So it's kind of a way to get mount skins, okay? And that could be very good. I really hope Arena nail that. Because this is such a cause for celebration if they do it well. I don't want that to be a cause for controversy. So yeah, we get a new demonic Skyscale mount, and they also say advanced flight masteries. The new flight masteries are built to complement existing mastery lines. For example, as you progress, you'll unlock the ability for flying mounts to use ley lines and updrafts. The new mastery line also includes previous Skyscale abilities, and as a bonus for dedicated players, if you train both, they'll unlock bonuses for both. Okay, so there's a supplementary blog post about this we'll deal with in the coming days. But just to give you guys the basics on this. This new expansion, to fly around on these new islands, you need the Skyscale. So, ArenaNet are kind of giving you a very easy Skyscale in this expansion. And there's a bit of controversy about this, because the question is, does that screw over veterans? Does that invalidate the effort that people previously put into the Skyscale? What's the situation? And I know some people are kind of interested in my take on this. I think ArenaNet did the only thing they could have done here. They were in a sticky, rough situation with the Skyscale, and this was probably the most savvy way of going through it. And what do I mean they were in a sticky, rough situation? Well, let's rewind the clock back to Season 4, okay, when we got the Skyscale at the end of Season 4. Very clearly, they were looking to release some new game, because this was right before all the layoffs and, you know, the cancellations and all this stuff. The mysterious trailer popped up. Very clearly, they were looking to pivot to something else, which may have been a terrible decision, whatever. Let's not get into that. But if you ask me, my opinion on this is that the Skyscale got added to Guild Wars 2 years ago now. It got added to Guild Wars 2 at the end of Season 4 because they kind of thought this was the last hurrah. It didn't matter that it was going to be some insane movement creep, power creep. It was this big prestige, amazing thing. How do we end Guild Wars 2? Let's give them a dragon. You know, that kind of mentality. That's what I think they were essentially doing. It was this big ultimate celebration of Guild Wars 2. And they didn't anticipate the Icebrood Saga. Clearly, they scrambled for the Icebrood Saga. They didn't anticipate End of Dragons. They certainly didn't anticipate this. And they certainly didn't anticipate potentially another 10 years of Guild Wars 2 with this mini X-Pack stuff. And again, those may have been foolish anticipations. These may have been foolish ideas, but I think that's the world we're in. And so the Skyscale came out, and in the context of a world where that's kind of the end, that's the capstone, it works well. But we're not in that world. We're now post End of Dragons, where you've got this weird thing where there's this ludicrously powerful mount that significantly changes the experience of the game. People who played End of Dragons with the Skyscale had a very different experience to people who played without, let alone the other mounts, right? And they gave you a path for the other mounts. They gave you a path for the Raptor, they gave you a path for the Springer. But as time's gone by, the number of veterans with Skyscales has gone up. There's this huge gulf between veterans and new players, something that is very anti-Guild Wars, just in principle. And so you could say, well, just tell the new players to go back to Season 4 and get the Skyscale. But it's this weird patch buried in an increasingly old, irrelevant story, especially now that the End of Dragon saga is over. Sorry, just the Elder Dragon saga is over. And it costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of dedication. So it just doesn't work. It doesn't work having prestige that's tied to incredible, you know, power and actual access to movement. And this is a big problem I've had with the Legendary Armory as well. It's definitely not what Guild Wars is about. So they had to deal with this, and the more years that went by, the weirder this was going to get. You know, the Roller Beetle, for what it's worth, is very similar. It's this special mount, but you can only get it in one weird area of an older and older and older story, you know, buried in corner. But the Roller Beetle doesn't provide all of this kind of access. So what ArenaNet have done here is, I think they had two choices. One was to, like, get rid of the Skyscale, which is unthinkably impossible. They would never do that. That would just absolutely aggravate everyone. Another choice is to create maps where Skyscales are disabled and, you know, previous like POF mounts can't go or whatever, and you could deal with the Roller Beetle there as well, but that doesn't feel very good. Or they can do this. They can try to even the playing field by giving an alternate access version of the Skyscale to new players. And that's what they went with. And yeah, that does leave a bit of a bitter taste. They have tried to compensate veterans by saying, look, if you get the new Skyscale and the old Skyscale masteries all done, you do get additional bonuses. And that's its own can of worms that I'll deal with when we get to the blog posts. They've got some ludicrously OP stuff in there as well. So we might be back to square... Well, we'll never be totally back to square one. But yeah, so if you guys thought the Skyscale was really brutal and you didn't want to get it now, you will get it for this expansion. And what I'm most interested in here is what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did they identify this Skyscale issue, which had to be dealt with, okay? The Skyscale is one of those little things. There's a lot of things like knots in Guild Wars 2 where it's like, oh god, if they're going the long term with the game, they have to deal with this, right? The Skyscale is one of those. I actually think the dailies and the login rewards are kind of another one, and they're dealing with two at once here, which is great. These are good signs that ArenaNet really care to go on and on with Guild Wars. So they've dealt with this knot, and I'm wondering what came first. Did they identify the Skyscale issue and say, okay, let's do an expansion based on floating islands? And we'll make them echoes of reality to save a bit of money on assets? Or did they have the floating island idea already, and then think, oh, we can fix the Skyscale with this by sort of making the Skyscale required part of exploring here and give people it easily? I wonder which one it is. This is not a totally unheard of situation. Lots of MMOs have gone through things like this, and I'm happy to see Guild Wars has addressed it. We've kind of moved the goalpost though, because now what's going to happen 10 years down the line is it's, well, do you want to get the random story from season 4, or do you want to get the random Secrets of the Obscure story? But if the Secrets of the Obscure story is self-contained and works as its own tangible, sellable product, not a part of some long arc, 10 years in the future, this will be an easy recommendation to new players and continue making them money. So I think it's very smart in a lot of different ways. So there you go, that's the Skyscale. And finally, we have rewards. Not much to say here. We're basically in the video. 3 new armor sets. This one looks cool. The wizard stuff from above looks cool as well. This actually looks very snowy, doesn't it, here, really? At launch, unlock the new Rift Hunter and Astral Wards sets with a demonic set available later. So only 2 at the start and then 1 later. Looking forward to the demon stuff. Rich rewards. As you complete story chapters, you get stuff, combat tonics, infusions. I mean, this is the generic thing I always turn my brain off when I read. But here, check it out. And this is a bit of a bomb. I think this is really good. I do believe every every expansion needs something legendary. I think new legendary items are a huge part of Guild Wars. They've gone back to armor. There was some doubt that they would do this because the initial legendary armor stuff they did was kind of a bit questionable. You know, they tied it to raiding, first of all, which was one of the first big things that turned people off of it. I think it was a good idea for what it's worth, but, you know. And then when it came out, you know, it didn't look as good as some people wanted, and then there were the comparisons to the gem store and so on, whatever. And, you know, apparently it was really expensive and it took them a long time to do. They're doing legendary armor again. Now, they don't say anything about it here. They say a future release. Again, this is not a launch. It's kind of scary how much stuff is not a launch. Will introduce a brand new set of legendary armor that becomes infused with magic in combat. Essential materials and components for legendary armor collection will be available beginning at launch, so you can start. So you can build up resources right away. Now here's, and that's actually going to be very good incentive, by the way. I think a lot of people are going to be playing a lot of Guild Wars just to be ready for the legendary armor as soon as possible. So they'll get a good amount of playtime out of the vets here. They say it becomes infused with magic in combat. So this suggests to me that it's the same as the pre-existing legendary armor, whose main gimmick, if you guys will remember, is when you unsheath your weapons, it sort of transforms into something new. There's also kind of a secondary gimmick, which is that the chest piece has like a big flare. You know, if you're medium, it's those red dragon wings. If you're light, it looks like the fractal back piece or whatever. I hope that this legendary armor has something similar, because I do like that extra flare there. The concept art looks amazing. And you know what I thought when I first read this? And I believe there's some news. I've seen you guys in the comments talking about this. When I first read this, and I'd already been thinking about demons and other realms, and thinking about the Cryptis and maybe this Menzies thing, I thought obsidian armor. See, obsidian armor was essentially Guild Wars 1 legendary armor, and you got it from the Fissure of Woe. What's one of the currencies in the game that kind of really needs some sinks at the moment? Obsidian shards and karma. I don't know, man. I would love it if this expansion had obsidian armor. But if they were doing that, wouldn't they have said it here? But I don't know. I swear, has it been announced somewhere? You guys will have to let me know. Did they confirm in some interview or something that I haven't seen that it is obsidian armor? But I think that would be amazing. And listen, if obsidian armor, which is just, you know, the flavor of the new legendary stuff, is in this X-Pack, I think that's a big plus for the Fissure of Woe Menzies idea. So yeah, there you have it, really. And I'm very excited about this. Very excited about this. Very excited about the relics. Very excited about the Wizard's Vault. Skyscale stuff is sort of whatever, but it needed to happen. Something needed to happen on this. And that's pretty much an overview of the X-Pack here. That's pretty much the whole lot. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I will be back for more very, very soon. We have 2 blog posts as like actual first-party information from the studio. We still have the in-game stuff to look at. Lots and lots and lots happening. I can't believe this video got so long. I honestly sat down here thinking, oh man, this might not be very long, but there you go. Those are all my thoughts, all my initial takes on a broad overview. And I'll be back soon as well for videos on these 2. Let me know anything you want to think. I've asked you 1,000 times to drop a comment. There's probably no reason to do it again. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you want to talk as well, beyond just the comments, Discord is in the description. One of the links in the description. Please do feel free to come over to Discord. Because I am watching it very closely. And we've had some amazing speculation stuff over in the WP content channel. So yeah, cheers everybody. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.